What's up, UXers? So we are here today to review my own site. I'm going to eat my own dog food. I have been making YouTube videos for a while now. I need to go back and redo some of those YouTube videos from a while ago. They're such a mess, but I'm trying to get better about it and creating videos to talk through some of the details when I see shapeshifters or masked objects or broken objects or isolated objects. So if you don't know what those are, check out the channel. Make sure to subscribe because I'm going to be talking a lot more about them. But basically, they're like the four horsemen of the internet apocalypse. I think that they're the product of a lot of increased cognitive load that we put on our users that is just absolutely unnecessary. So I'm going to be looking at my own site. I've been looking at my own site a lot more because I'm going to be launching object-orientedux.com soon. So I'm trying to get the brand in order, working a lot through the rewired design system. So I've been doing a lot of cleanup work. And as I was doing cleanup work, I realized that I make some of the mistakes that I preach about. So we're specifically going to be talking about shapeshifters. So shapeshifters are when you have a module, a component that is representing an object that changes shape, look, feel, structure when it moves from page to page. So let's say you're representing an event on one page and you have the date and time in the upper right-hand corner. And then on another page, you also are showing an event, but you are showing the date and time in the lower left-hand corner. So this is what I call a shapeshifter. And what happens is users learn to process, they learn to recognize an object based on its structure. And when we start moving things around, we're just increasing cognitive load. So this happens all over the web. I have a lot of examples. I especially like to pick on Meetup, but today I'm going to be picking on myself. So got to be fair here and just want to say that, like, even when you teach this stuff and think about it all the time, it's such an easy thing to fall into when you're designing page by page and when you make an update on one page and you update a module that represents an object within your system. And when I say object, you can think content type, if that helps, an entity. And when you might update it on one page, but forget that it shows up on 16 other pages. And so you've changed it in one place, but now you've introduced inconsistencies. And what you've done is you've actually made it harder for the user to recognize that object. So, and that's what, and I promise I'm going to start showing stuff on the screen in a second, but that's basically what users are looking for when they come to any new environment. If you go to a coffee shop you've never been to, your brain tries to recognize what the objects are so you don't run into stuff, and so that you can recognize what's a table and what's a chair, and you can recognize the person that you're trying to meet versus the barista. So that's what the brain does, is it goes in and it tries to recognize objects. And if you have shape-shifting objects that change shape, especially if they're changing shape arbitrarily for absolutely no reason at all, then it makes it harder for users to recognize your objects. Okay, so let's look at some shapeshifters that I found on my site. So let's go through, and I've actually already made the update, but I took screenshots. So I'm going to show you where the shapeshifter was, but I went ahead and updated it. Okay, so let's take a look at what the objects are on this site. So if you go over to services, you see service categories. So you actually need to click into a category. So let's click into UX coaching, and then you get to the service type detail page, which has a list of services that then you can click on that service. And when you get to the service, you can actually click back to UX coaching, kind of like a little tag there. And then if you get all the way to the bottom of the page, it's a long one. You can see in the footer, I have the three main service categories shown again. So you can click back to that. So that for service type, that's looking pretty good. And service it just always looks like this. So it could probably do a little bit more of the visual design here, but at least it's pretty consistent. This thing kind of flexes up and down based on the amount of text there. Something that I want to fix, but it's not too bad. If I go over to OUX, and just a side note, the reason that the hover states are different here is because this entire site is color coded based on OOUX color coding. So object-oriented UX being kind of a category that brings together all sorts of different content types. It's basically metadata that is on a lot of different content types. So metadata on testimonials is a testimonial about OOUX, on resources, on events. Oh, hey, look, it shows you here. Resources, events. What the heck is this? Oh, God. It's like every time I try to make this video, I find other stuff that I need to change. So some weirdness here with these tabs, but we have testimonials, resources, events, and a big old block of text that needs to be updated. So that's why there's the different color coding. So the Sophia page, it's a piece of content. It's basically a snowflake page. So that's why it's in yellow. And then all the object lists have the blue hover state. And then of course the call to action has green. So if you're not familiar with the OOUX color coding, then I hope one day you will be. Okay, so going back to this tab, just going across the top, we have testimonials here. And these testimonials, these are like the little snippet testimonials. And then there's longer testimonials down here. So I am noticing that I put the quotes on here and I don't use the internal quotes here. But otherwise, they're pretty consistent. I also don't put the title of the person who said the testimonial up here, but that's okay. It's a little bit of progressive disclosure. This is like the tiny call out of a testimonial. And then these are the longer versions of the testimonials. So resources, this is what a resource looks like. And if I go over, I know I have resources over here too. They look exactly the same. So no shapeshifters there. If we go over to Sophia, we have a video that desperately needs to be updated. We also have a list of events. So if we go over to the OOUX tab and look at events, we can see that those are actually the same. Now there's some jankiness here that I need to clean up as well. Some things that from a visual perspective, time to do yoga. From a visual perspective, I could definitely do better on, but I am not a visual designer and I just pretend to be. Okay, so overall, things are looking pretty good here. I also don't have what I call masked objects. So masked objects are when we have two modules that look exactly the same, that are basically wearing the same outfit, but represent two different things. So all of this is very much a testimonial. It's got the little testimonial, the quote marks there, and I only use that for the testimonial. The structure for the resource, the way that there's this banner with the image here, that's only used for resources. I actually do want to take it a step further as I improve the design for Rewired and carry that style over into object-orientedux.com. I want to create icons for each of my content types and carry those icons through into the module. So it's very clear that this is a resource and this is an event and this is a testimonial. I want to make sure all my objects are incredibly recognizable. I could probably also be doing better at connecting my objects. I don't have a lot of detail pages actually. So all of my resources, they just go off to wherever the resource is hosted. And really the only detail pages are with the services. But as far as isolating objects, I'm not doing that good. This actually does end up to be a dead end other than the footer. I could be connecting this to other services or even events as well. So that's also something that I'm looking to do better on, but we're focusing on shapeshifters. So let me show you what I had before I fixed it. So we're specifically looking at the service type. So on the service type list page here, so what I had before, this looks exactly the same. So that's what I had before. But what I had in the footer, I actually had a blue background here. So that was completely arbitrary. There was no design decision. It basically, and you can see here, they show up right next to each other because this is a very short page and we go straight to the footer. So basically these two things, they were representing the exact same thing. They went to the exact same place, but this one had a blue background and this one had a white background for absolutely no reason. And so if I really want to practice what I preach, I need to make sure that those are completely consistent. So I did fix that. Now, much more egregiously, when you would click on either of these, either the one on the footer on any of the pages or the one that was on the services list page, you would go to this. This is the header. So what it looks like now is this. So it's much more consistent. And this is what I had before. So I had a crazy gradient in the background, totally different font. And also like this like background, what do you call that? Text shadow. So totally different styling. So you would click on this and you would go to this. And I'm much happier now, even though this is a lot plainer, a little bit more simple. It's very clear that when I click on this, that I'm in the big version of that thing that I just clicked on, because there's parity there. It looks exactly the same. And then one other piece, there was actually 4 versions of the service type when you went into the service detail page in the header. So the OUX Fundamentals Workshop had this little tag thing. So this tag thing actually went back to the UX coaching page. So you click that and it would pop back over here. But again, it looked completely different. It was white with the pink text. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different stylistic treatments for the exact same thing. So now we have it much more consistent. So if we go here, we can actually see. Now I did change the hover state just a little bit to give it a pink underline, and this is just a tiny nod to my color coding because this is actually an object acting as metadata. So it's an object that is a way of categorizing the different services. It's service type. So that's why I gave it the little pink underline, which I probably should add here too, right? I should add it there too. Let's add it together. So if you're interested in how Webflow works, then come along. If you're not interested in how Webflow works, then feel free to dip off. Thank you for joining me on this journey of me criticizing my own website. All right, let's go ahead and add that little pink underline. So I'm going into the footer here, which is a symbol within Webflow, and I'm going to click on that style, so the category module header, and I'm going to go over to my style. Actually, what I want to do is I want to go up a div to the service type module. And you can see I name my classes based on the objects. My class naming is object oriented as much as possible. So when I have my service type module and I want to go to the hover state, so now you can see it's in the hover state, which is that blue. And I'm going to go over to typography and add an underline. And now how did I make that underline just the underline pink? I really don't know how I did that, because I feel like that's going to, oh, okay. Now, weird, because I did kind of expect the entire text to become pink. I'm a little confused why it didn't. This is what I want, but I don't really know why that worked. So I sort of muddy my way through Webflow. But cool. All right. So now I just hit publish, and now it is even, but now I need to do, so here's the thing. So Webflow, if you're listening, I need symbols and the CMS to have a baby. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you use Webflow and you use CMS and you use symbols, you probably also know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's go back and change it in that other place. So we have service type module. Now, the reason that, you know what I needed to do to make that pink go over to this one, because it's the same service type module, it's the same class, but this is the small one. So how do I apply that pink underline I want to apply the pink underline to this and not the subclass. This is where I get a little confused. If you know how to do that, please help me out in the comments. I'm just going to hack it and do it here too because I can't figure it out. Ideally, I would have applied it to the service type module and that hover state would have propagated to both of these modules, but because I applied it to the subclass, it didn't. So if you do know how to do that, then yeah, let me know. Okay. Oh, I got some transforms in here. I was doing fancy stuff. All right. So now I want for the text, all in the name of consistency. I want this to be hover state. I want to get that underline. Oh, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. This, I want to get that underline and I want it to be pink, and it's probably gonna make the whole thing pink. It did make the whole thing pink. All right, if you can help me out with this, please do so in the comments. I'm just gonna undo that, and that's just gonna be inconsistent now because I don't know how to make just the underline pink. So hopefully that was helpful, or maybe it was just confusing. But the main point in this entire video is watch out for those shapeshifters. I do them. You're probably doing them. If you change the design of the module that is representing the object, make sure you have a very good freaking reason to do so. Don't do it arbitrarily like I did over here. This is completely arbitrary. There's no reason for this at all. Sometimes there's a really good reason. And if there is a good reason, make sure you research it and remember that you're sacrificing consistency, which is sacrificing recognizability. So if you say, oh, well, the date and time is more important here than it is over here, so we're going to move it up over here, remember that your user might have been trained to look for it in the lower left-hand corner. So even if you think you're doing them a favor by moving it to the top, you actually might make it harder to recognize that thing and harder to find that piece of data. So just make sure you research it, make sure you're conservative, be consistent unless you're absolutely sure. And yeah, watch out for those shapeshifters.